"You were just a servant in my house. And now you're fired, get out." Those were my husband's last words before the courtroom doors slammed shut behind him. The sound echoed like the end of an era. I stood there, divorced, homeless, stripped of everything I had built beside him. The same man who once promised me the world had just tossed me out like I was nothing more than hired help. Outside, the winter air bit through my coat. I walked until my legs trembled, finally sinking onto a park bench dusted with snow. My hands shook, partly from the cold, partly from disbelief. He'd taken the house, the car, even the savings I'd earned from years of managing his business behind the scenes. All I had left was a small handbag and a scarf my mother gave me before she passed. As tears blurred my vision, a frail old man shuffled toward the bench beside me. His clothes were worn thin, his hands raw from the cold. He smiled weakly, and for some reason, I felt his pain more than mine. Without thinking, I took off my scarf and wrapped it around his neck. "Here," I said softly. "You need it more than I do." He looked at me for a long moment. Then, in a voice that suddenly carried warmth and power, he whispered, "I never forget kindness, daughter. Come, I'll show you your new home." I blinked. "What?" He stood, eyes glimmering under the streetlight. And as he gestured down the road, a black luxury car pulled up. My heart stopped. The luxury car's window lowered, revealing a chauffeur in a dark suit who stepped out immediately and bowed slightly to the old man. "Sir, the car is ready," he said. The old man, the same one who moments ago had looked homeless, turned to me with a gentle smile. "Come, daughter. You've given me warmth when I had none. It's time I return the favor." I hesitated. I don't even know your name." He chuckled softly. "Names can wait. Trust must come first." Something about his tone disarmed me. I followed him into the car, my heart pounding. The seats were lined with fine leather, the scent of cedar and luxury filling the air. As the driver pulled away from the curb, I glanced at the old man. His ragged coat now looked like a disguise, his posture straight and regal. "I saw you in court today," he said quietly. "Your husband made quite a scene." My throat tightened. "He destroyed everything I had." The old man nodded thoughtfully. "He may have taken your comfort, but he cannot take your worth." "Do you know why?" "Why?" I whispered. "Because worth is proven in loss. Only then do we discover who we truly are." His words sank deep. The city lights blurred outside, reflecting on the tinted glass like stars. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. He smiled faintly, eyes shining with a mystery I couldn't yet name. "To a place that once belonged to my daughter, and now, perhaps, belongs to you." My breath caught. "Your daughter?" He looked out the window. She was betrayed, too. The car wound through narrow streets and up a quiet hillside. I stared out the window, expecting an old cottage or some forgotten shelter. Instead, the vehicle stopped before a sprawling estate, stone walls, iron gates, and gardens glowing faintly under the winter moonlight. "This can't be right," I whispered. The old man stepped out with surprising strength for someone his age. "It's exactly right." He turned to me with that same soft smile. "This was my daughter's home. It's been empty for years. I believe it's meant for someone with a kind heart again." Before I could speak, the gates opened automatically. The driver nodded to me. "He rarely brings anyone here." We entered the mansion. The air inside was warm and scented with wood and vanilla, like memory itself. Paintings of a young woman lined the hallway. Her face was radiant, eyes full of quiet power. I stopped before one portrait. "She's beautiful." "She was," he murmured. "She believed that kindness was never wasted, even when the world mocked her for it." He looked at me, his expression gentle but intent. "Do you believe that too?" I hesitated, voice trembling. "I want to." "Then live here," he said simply. "Take care of this place. It's yours now." My heart skipped. "Mine? But why?" "Because you reminded me of who my daughter was before she died," he said quietly. "And because your husband took from you what men like him can never give, dignity. It's time you take it back. I stood frozen as realization hit. The stranger wasn't poor at all. He was wealthier than my husband ever was. And he'd just given me everything my ex thought he destroyed. I spent that night in the guest room, though guest didn't feel like the right word anymore. The old man, whose name I learned was Mr. Arden, had arranged everything: fresh clothes, food, even a small envelope on the dresser that read, "For a new beginning." Inside was a bank card and a note. "You helped me as a human. Let me help you as a father." I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the flames dancing in the fireplace. Just 12 hours ago, I had nothing. Now I had safety and, strangely, peace. But part of me couldn't rest. Not while my ex-husband still paraded around, celebrating his victory in court. The next morning, Mr. Arden joined me for breakfast. He was reading a newspaper, glasses perched on his nose. "I assume you'll want to rebuild," he said casually. "Do you plan to return to your old field?" I smiled faintly. I used to manage my husband's business operations quietly behind the scenes. The success everyone credited him for? That was my work. He folded the paper. "Then it's time the world knows your name." By noon, he'd connected me with a legal team, his legal team. Within days, I filed to reopen my professional license and claim intellectual rights to the systems I had developed. Mr. Arden simply said, "Truth doesn't need noise. It needs proof." As his words echoed in my head, I realized something. I wasn't here by accident. The man I helped on that cold night wasn't just saving me. He was handing me a chance to rewrite everything. 2 weeks later, I walked into the same courthouse where my husband had once humiliated me, but this time, I wasn't the trembling woman who left in tears. I was Alara Quinn, 31, co-founder and legal co-owner of the company he thought was his alone. The moment he saw me across the courtroom, his smug grin faltered. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. "Attending my own hearing," I said calmly, handing my lawyer a stack of documents. "After all, it's about my intellectual property." He laughed, trying to recover. "You worked under me. That means the business belongs to me." My lawyer smiled. "Actually, Mr. Quinn, we have registered correspondence showing your wife, Mrs. Alara Quinn, filed those patents herself from her personal account 2 years before your company went public. She owns 51%. The color drained from his face. The judge leaned forward. "Do you dispute this evidence?" He stammered. "Teach, there must be a mistake." I spoke then, calm, measured. "No mistake, Your Honor. He built his empire on my ideas, my late nights, my trust. All I did was document what he stole." Every word landed like a gavel strike. The courtroom was silent except for the judge's voice declaring the transfer of assets and reinstating my financial control. When we stepped outside, cameras flashed. A reporter asked, "Mrs. Quinn, how does it feel to win?" I smiled softly. "It's not about winning. It's about remembering my own value and refusing to let someone else define it again." That night, I returned to the mansion. Mr. Arden was waiting at the door, proud. "So," he said with a knowing smile, "did justice taste as cold as the night you met me?" I smiled. "No, it's warm. Because it's mine." When I returned to the mansion that evening, the house felt different. Alive. Mr. Arden greeted me with a quiet nod, but something in his eyes made me pause. "I saw the hearing," he said. "You handled yourself with grace. But now, I need to tell you something that can't wait." He motioned for me to follow him into his study, a grand room filled with darkwood shelves, old maps, and framed blueprints of architectural marvels. In the corner stood a portrait of the same young woman I'd seen before. "That's my daughter," he began softly. "Her name was Amelia Arden. She married into a powerful family that took everything she built. Her husband erased her name from every contract, every invention. She died believing her work had no worth." I swallowed hard. "That's what happened to me." He nodded slowly. "Which is why, when you gave me that scarf, when everyone else looked away, I saw her in you." My chest tightened. "You're saying—" "Yes," he said gently. "This house, these assets, they're yours now. Legally. My lawyers filed the paperwork this morning. I froze. Why me? He smiled faintly. Because power belongs in the hands of those who've known powerlessness. And because you reminded me what integrity looks like. Tears blurred my vision as I realized what he'd done. He wasn't just giving me shelter. He was giving me legacy. Mr. Arden, I whispered. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Call me father. You've earned it. That night, for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. I felt chosen. A month later, I received an invitation that almost made me laugh. My ex-husband's company gala. The same company I now legally own the majority of. The irony was delicious. The event was held in the grand ballroom of the Hilton, chandeliers, champagne, polished smiles. I arrived in a black velvet gown, escorted by Mr. Arden's private driver. Conversations paused as I walked in. My ex froze mid-sentence when he saw me. Elara, he stammered, his face paling. What are you doing here? I smiled. Attending my company's annual celebration. Whispers rippled across the room. Cameras clicked. His board members exchanged startled looks. A man from the investor group approached me respectfully. Mrs. Quinn, or should I say Ms. Arden now, I've reviewed the new ownership documents. Congratulations on your controlling stake. My ex's expression collapsed completely. You can't. I leaned closer, keeping my voice calm. You forgot to change the foundation's registration. The patents and shares you hid under my name for tax purposes? They're legally mine. Every single one. He went still. You wouldn't dare. I smiled. You dared first. At that moment, Mr. Arden entered the ballroom. He wasn't wearing his ragged coat this time. He stood tall, regal, the real man behind everything. Reporters gasped as they recognized him. The founder of Arden Holdings, one of the wealthiest men in the country. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Gentlemen, he said calmly, meet my daughter, the new CEO. The room erupted into applause. Cameras flashed, microphones rose, and my ex-husband's face turned ghost white as the truth dawned on him. The servant he'd thrown away had just become his boss. The next morning, I returned to the same courthouse where it had all begun, not as the broken woman he once discarded, but as the rightful owner of everything he'd tried to steal. My ex-husband sat across the table in disbelief, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. The judge looked over the final settlement documents. Mrs. Quinn, he said, you now possess full control of the company's assets, properties, and intellectual rights. Would you like to press further criminal charges for fraud? I looked at my ex, his pride shattered, his arrogance drained. There was a time I would have wanted revenge. Now I only wanted peace. No, Your Honor, I said softly. Let him live with the knowledge that everything he owns exists because of the woman he underestimated. The judge nodded. So be it. Outside, reporters swarmed. Ms. Arden, how does it feel to end this chapter? One asked. I smiled faintly. It's not about ending something. It's about beginning again, this time with self-respect intact. When I got home, Mr. Arden, father, was waiting by the fireplace. You could have crushed him completely, he said, studying me. I didn't need to, I replied. He destroyed himself the moment he called kindness weakness. He smiled with quiet pride. Then you've learned the final lesson. True power doesn't roar. It simply stands. As the firelight flickered across the room, I felt the weight of my journey lift. The woman who once gave away her last scarf had rebuilt her world, and she'd done it with grace. Outside, snow began to fall, quiet, steady, cleansing. And I whispered to myself, kindness was my revenge.